as MAIHDA continues to spread across disciplines, so like public health and psychology and education, what are some of the ethical guardrails or norms that you hope that the field or the many fields will develop to ensure that the method is used in ways that, is really genuinely advancing equity?
Yes. Some of these points I already hit on, but I'll sort of repeat them. Asking good questions, first and foremost. That's asking good questions is part of the ethics of this, right? And where are those questions coming from? Who's getting to ask them? What is the intention with those questions? Sometimes questions can feel sort of detached and academic, but underneath them, there's usually a point to the question. And sometimes asking yourself, what will I or what could one do with this information once I have compiled it or analyzed it, is a really good place to understand the purpose of it. So often I see sort of exhausted, bewildered analyses get started where it's like, okay, let me just do this because I can. I have the data. Let me just do it because I can. I'll get a publication. I understand that impulse. Resist if you can. Because sometimes, to your horror, you will get to the end of the project, and it's terrible when you've invested, 6 months or a year or more in a project like this. You get to the end and you're like, great, what do I do with this? There is nothing that can be done with this that would be ethical.
Oh, wow.
There is nothing that can be done with this that would not reinforce stigma or divert resources from things that would be more important. Don't do that, right? That's not the kind of work that you want to be doing. You want to be doing stuff where once you have your result, it makes that great soundbite that makes the news, that changes people's hearts. It can create support for a movement. It can reverse a policy that was enacted. It becomes part of the conversation. So I think part of it might be, and I'm speaking here from public health world where this happened for a while. We got afraid of being political. And I think right now we are having a bit of a reckoning that we should be a little bit, if we can, safely, be a little bit braver and don't be afraid to get political. Don't be afraid to get specific about what it is that's driving something. That's going to be the more important work to do. So that's a good ethical guardrail. Checking in with my own bravery is something I have to do perpetually. Uh, I mentioned this earlier, but read those original scholars, read the works of the activists, the Black feminist scholars. Uh, Go back to the origins of these issues, understand the original versions of the arguments around biological determinism and eugenics. Because Stephen Jay Gould, I'm going to horribly misquote him here, but it was something about how every few years the same argument shows up again and again, just reinventing itself. It's like a new monster that keeps showing up. Right now with AI, we are seeing a reinvention of physiognomy where they try and do facial recognition. And then, because of course, different things are correlated with different things in data, they're saying, oh, this is your likelihood of committing crime and ending up in prison. Well, what do we think is baked into that, right?
Right,
This is
right.
just a reinvention of those old racist pseudosciences. Let's be on guard for those kind of things now by knowing that history and knowing what the argument looks like as it has been respawned, because it's going to happen again. It's happening again right now. Think through implications of our work, read critical theory, read broadly, and then always be asking what's next. Okay, so I did my analysis. Now what? How am I going to work based on what I have just found? How am I going to support or work with or be led by the community that I am trying to help?
I dropped in the chat this chapter, and so if you're, and I think we could post it in the collective, for whom qualitative research representation, and it really addresses some of the things that you're talking about in terms of the ethics of representation. And at the end, well, this is one of my favorite articles. It's Michelle Fine et
Mm.
al. And at the end of it, they talk about this sort of list of sort of 10 things you should be asking yourself, including do you need to include a disclaimer in the research? Especially if you know that it can be used for nefarious reasons. And so I really, that article is just a gem about a lot of the ethical issues around representation, regardless of whether it's quantitative, qualitative, or anything. And so I highly recommend um, that.